Boom. What is up? Lone Chemist Podcast, episode 37. My name is Johnny. I'm the Lone Chemist. I have, let's see, I'm a tourist. I like long walks on the beach. I like pina coladas. And I have a very special guest here. So I have another Film Hub member. I have Houston, who is the poster child, head honcho, and mastermind of the channel Houstonproductions1. So I wanted to ask, so the one, is it because there was already existing Houston Productions and you couldn't get the name, or you just wanted to put one to be cool?
You know, I made my channel in like 2011, and back then everyone had a number in their name because that was
Oh,
just the cool thing to do. So that's what I did. But I do like that, like you can abbreviate it as HP1 rather than just HP. Like it adds something to it, I think. But yeah, now people ask, and I'm like, I don't know, like
yeah. And also, I mean, like HP is kind of sound with Harry Potter, so you don't want to really
right,
know it's like a Harry
exactly.
Potter YouTuber, which, you know.
Yeah. Even though in many ways I am that.
Well, I do love Harry Potter for sure, so we can geek
Yeah.
out about that together. But yeah, man, just wanted to say first, really impressed with your content. You do some really awesome stuff. I really like your videos because they interject a lot of individuality and personality, because you actually film yourself talking to the camera as opposed to being the pretentious guy behind a microphone, like doing, motion blur and keyframing and stuff. Like you actually like inject your own kind of ethos into it, and also you have like really cool filmmaking things that you do for your videos. So just to praise you a little bit. And also, I mean, I think the first video I saw from you was your Infinity War retrospective, which I thought
Yeah.
was fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah, big inspiration for me because I'm just kind of starting in the podcast, mostly video essay, but like I do podcast my channel as well.
Right.
And yeah, being a 26-year-old and, being in awe of 19, right? 19?
19, yeah.
Yeah, 19 years old makes me feel incredibly inspired, but also really fucking jealous of you. But yeah, you do some great stuff, man. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, no, yeah, I know the feeling. I'll watch like, all these little children YouTubers who have millions of followers more than I do, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you know. But yeah, like that's totally I appreciate you remarking on the fact that like I show my face in my videos, because like for a while when I first started doing video essays, I did what everybody does, which is just, voiceover and some footage and stuff. And part of that was because I I'm still so young that when I look back at videos where I showed my face in them, like even 6 months later, I'll be like, oh, I was so young in that video. Like, why did I show my face? And now, and so that was sort of a hurdle for me to get past, but I sort of have made myself do that because I think it does make it more personal, and it makes it more, like, I've had to learn to be okay with putting my art in a place in time and being like, this is the best I can do right now. In 6 months, I may look back and think I was young, or think it was, not as good as what I'm doing later. But like, I think it's good to do the best you can and put yourself out there, even if it will age at some point. So
No, I totally feel that, because like it almost like puts a chronology on your content, and you're able to
right,
kind of
yeah,
like and like being kind of meta, you're able to kind of like track your growth as a creator by
yeah.
seeing yourself kind of like age and mature over a number of years. That's actually really cool. I didn't even think about it like that. So I just wanted to get a sense of you. So you are a young guy. You're 19. Are you in college? You're just finishing high school, or
I
what's the
just
deal?
finished high school. I'm taking a gap year this year and focusing on YouTube and some other stuff.
Very
I'm
cool.
going to go study some stuff in England for 8 weeks or so.
Nice.
And then I'm probably going to look at college after that. So
Nice. So yeah, I mean, as a person getting a graduate degree right now, I mean, it takes a lot of bravery to be able to like put a hold on college when, I mean, that's like a huge credential kind of thing these days, where you can actually, you're able to like focus on generating content because you love doing it, and also it's a really lucrative career, but also you can go back to school later if you want to, like for
yeah,
education, of course. Yeah, it's really admirable, man. So I just want to
nice.
get a sense of you generally. So you are a video essay guy, and I guess, backtracking further, what got you interested in film to begin with, I guess?
Well, my dad has always been a film guy. He went to NYU back in, I guess it was the 80s when he went, and got a film degree there and became an editor, and then later a screenwriter. And now he does some somewhat different stuff, but still involving movies and connecting people through movies. And so I've always just sort of grown up in a movie family and loved film
I
because
can
of
tell
that,
from
and just stories in general.
I can tell
Yeah,
from the stuff on your walls. Yeah.
right. uh, but yeah, that was part of it. And then, you know, my YouTube channel started out as a Lego channel, and that was what it was for the first 4 or 5 years that I was doing stuff. And looking back, I think that really did influence the trajectory toward film, because things like stop motion and even just being creative with building things really eventually played into what it's like to make a movie. And especially with stop motion, I think you'll look at a lot of, you know, the most famous filmmakers today, and especially like big YouTubers, like even, God rest his soul, Bobby Burns. He started out as a Lego YouTuber doing stop motion stuff, and I think it does, like, stop motion teaches you the basics of filmmaking and inspires you to be a filmmaker just on a micro scale. And so I look back at that as like something that really inspired me to then look at film in a grander sense. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting too, because stop motion, I feel like I feel like when people see stop motion, I feel like they kind of get lost in the illusion, which is kind of the point, but they also don't really know that so much goes into every single pose and every single shot for stop motion to make it look fluid. So that's a really good point, the fact that you're able to learn the mechanics of filmmaking through like a very small lens. And then, of course, like, you know, and
a lens that doesn't cost any money either. Like, you know, you don't have to pay actors, and you don't have to build huge sets, and you don't have to have a fancy camera. Like, you can do it all with just toys, essentially, and that's part of the charm. So
yeah, no, exactly. I totally feel that. And so what kind of shifted your perspective from being more of like a stop motion Lego toy YouTuber to more video essays? Like, do you know like a certain time in your life where like you saw a video essay and you're like, I want to do exactly that, and then started doing it?
I think it was partially, it just felt like a natural transition. And I started a podcast called Blockbusted, which is where my Twitter handle comes from, and that sort of then pushed it even further. I remember being really inspired, as we all have been, by Nerdwriter early on, especially in like 2014, 15. I feel like that was his like really peak era of making video essays that everyone was watching. And then some other like Red Letter Media and Ralph the Movie Maker kind of stuff. I was like, I would like to do stuff like this. And if you look at my early video essays, a few of which aren't even public, but like if you look at those, they are very much derivative of Nerdwriter and Ralph and that kind of stuff. And it took me a while to sort of find my own voice in that. But yeah, like I had always wanted to talk about movies. It was just a matter of finding what the approach was going to be to do that. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I also like felt the same way with the Nerdwriter stuff and also about the Movie Maker. But also, I think the biggest one for me was probably Captain Christian, because like his editing in those videos just legitimately blows my mind to this day. And like,
it's incredible.
It really is. But honestly, like, because I've gotten a little bit better with After Effects and motion and like Premiere and like, you know, just general motion graphic stuff, the illusion and like the pure wonder of my my fascination with this content kind of died. But like, I feel like now that I kind of am getting decent at video editing, I see kind of the tricks he does. But like, I just respect the hell out of that guy, because like there is so much stuff that you have to do to make that shot look as good as it does. Like, I mean, one of the big ones is when he does like the like the letter. It's like a little rectangle within a rectangle, and like things sprout up like from a little rectangle on screen.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, and I just kind of learned how to do that like a couple weeks ago, and like it's pretty simple. All you need is like, you know, Photoshop, separate the layers, and like, you know, put in a shape mask and stuff. But like, the time it takes to do that consistently and then have it transition to something smoothly is so. It blows my mind how patient that guy is, and honestly, like. Is he dead? Like, he just doesn't upload like ever.
I'm hoping that his lack of content means he's like moved on to even bigger things and we just don't know about it. Like maybe he's directing commercials or something. Like that's what I hope for him, you know. But yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, no, exactly. So he's a big one, but also the Nerdwriter really inspired me too. And even though he's a pretentious guy, like he makes a good point for sure. Like I think his best video is probably the BVS video he did with the moments over scenes. I'm a big fan of that one.
Good. That was a good like succinct summary of the problems with the movie and stuff. Yeah, I always remember the Prisoner of Azkaban video being a huge one that I loved. And that's now. Like, you've seen a huge surge in people talking about The Prisoner of Azkaban as the most artistic Harry Potter movie because of that video.
Yeah, exactly.
Just shows how much impact it had. And then there's one about the Battle of Helm's Deep and how it's structured that's really good. Yeah, his recent content, I think he's still super talented,
Yeah.
and I enjoy watching whatever he does. But like, he's done a few things that I've been like, okay, that's a stretch. Like, he did the one about cell phones in
Oh
movies.
my God, that was
Like,
cringe. Yeah.
oh, this is a stretch, man. Like,
Yeah,
you
because
know,
like his whole thesis in that video was like, okay, obviously, if you depict cell phones like in a way, it like I guess alienates the audience because we see those devices all the time. And like, sure, I guess
yeah.
that's a decent thesis, but I mean, the point that I would make is it's just not interesting to have that on screen. And I don't think it really taps into like some kind of like zeitgeist or like subconscious thing that people like averted to using cell phones in movies.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, seeing an iPhone in the movie is just kind of boring. I don't think it speaks to like a
Well,
cultural
right. It's
aversion to
it's
it.
kind of like, I think lots of the comments on that video were people saying things like, "Well, that's just like why don't we show characters going to the bathroom in a movie? Oh, well,
Exactly.
it's a mundane thing that doesn't matter for the plot, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But I mean, I agree with you. I mean, even though some of his stuff's been kind of hit or miss recently, he's done some great stuff. And like, I
yeah,
mean, he is very simple editing, but like it conveys the point so well because like
hmm
I fall because I'm working on a video right now for the Spectacular Now. I've never seen that movie before with Miles Teller and Shailene Woodley.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite love story of all time, which is kind of my thesis of the entire video. But I've kind of like plunged into the problem where I sometimes over edit and like I have like animations kind of going crazy, and I feel
Right.
like Nerdwriter strikes a great balance between less is more and having flashy editing. Like I think one of his ones he did was the Movie Pass video where like he had
hmm
like beautiful like graphical representations of the economics in Movie Pass.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like really succinct editing. It was just flashy enough to be interesting, but it also like I mean part of editing is knowing when not to do something as opposed to when to do something. So
Right.
yeah, that's something that I really struggle with recently, to be honest.
Yeah, that's definitely like, when I get editing a video, I'm so obsessive and ADD and hyper focus on things that like, I'll make a video and it's fine, but then I'll spend another like 2 days just combing through it and seeing how many more flashy things I can add to it,
Yeah,
and I have to learn to balance that. Where on the one hand, it's good to put more effort into things, and I think lately I've been trying to not just do plain footage and hard cuts and stuff. Like, I want to add a little bit of flair to it,
yeah.
but also, yeah, it's you never want to go overboard when it's not even necessary at all. So
No, I totally agree.
yeah.
Um, and but yeah, man. So your content specifically. So I guess I can ask this later, but whatever. I'm just excited. Where would you say like is your goal for YouTube going forward, as opposed to you obviously have a great niche for video essays and the kind of long form content, but do you envision like your content going in other directions? Do you envision like any big projects you want to do like in the near future or what?
I think um like, I've wanted to start this Animation Matters series that I started with the Spider Verse video,
Which is
and
great,
right
by the way.
now
I
it's
love
not a
that video. It
series.
was awesome.
Thanks. Yeah. Right now it's not a series; it's just one video. But like,
Yeah.
I'm hoping to do more in that series, more videos about animation and specific animated movies that I love. I'm really hoping to continue the long form content kind of stuff, because I think that I have found a niche with that. But yeah, I think maybe the biggest thing would probably be just being able to branch out to certain things that, like, I want to stay around storytelling and analyzing media and that kind of stuff, but I do want to be able to branch out to things that are just sort of part of my personality. So like, my upcoming video is really the first step of that, where I'm going to talk about Breath of the Wild and how that equates, or how that translates into Disney theme park design, and how
Mm.
the two cross over. And those are two very niche things that most people don't think of together, but they're two things that are super important to me, especially the theme park design part. And so it will be a bit of an experiment to see what the response is, because like, the people who are subscribed to my channel, I don't think are super interested in theme park stuff. But if I'm able to put my own spin on it and market it in a way that is interesting, I'm hoping it's going to pan out pretty well. And I really want to make the video. So yeah, that's part of what I want to do going forward, is be able to keep going with consistent content that matches my brand, but also just make the channel more about like my personality and what I'm interested in, and hopefully be able to interest other people in those things by talking about them. So
Yeah, for sure. All right, and I wanted to ask this because, like, we're in like a similar group chat on Twitter, and like we like
yeah,
we tweet back and forth sometimes. So you are like the theme park history like master. You're like the sensei. So I just want to I want to ask about that interest. So like have you just like always been in the theme parks? Like did you ever like work at a theme park, or like how did that fascination kind of start?
I wish I was more of a theme park expert than I am, actually.
What are you talking about?
But
You know like everything about
yeah,
that.
I I think I come across as the super theme park expert in the film circles because I'm the only theme park expert. But there are definitely people who are a lot more intelligent than me on that. But yeah, like I went to Disney World first when I was 8 years old, and I've been back. I don't know, like 7 or 8 times since then. I became a pass holder this year, so I've been going back several times this year. I'm going to go see Galaxy's Edge in September. But yeah, that was just I don't know. I think it started. I mean, I've loved Disney World since I was a kid, and even before I went, I remember growing up watching some VHS tapes of Disney World. But then I think my real fandom, like geekiness of it, started maybe around 2015 or so, on the trip that I went on that year, and that was when I really started to get into the history and the theming and theme park design of stuff. I'm not a huge engineering guy. Like that's my I always I would love to be an Imagineer, but if I was, I would have to be the story Imagineer, not the, how the roller coaster is going to work Imagineer. And so for me, the things that I love about Disney parks ultimately come down to immersion and theming and how they bring you into a world that is more heightened than the real world. And so yeah, like I don't know if I could put my finger on like what got me into it other than just loving Disney World so much. But it definitely plays into the whole movies fan thing because I think there's a lot of crossover there. And in a way, like I see theme parks as almost bigger than movies. Like Walt Disney, when Walt built Disney World, he did so because he was getting tired of movies dating him so fast. Like he would make a movie and then it would be done and it would be like, oh, well, it's out in the world. I can't change it anymore. And the reason that he built Disneyland was that it would be an ever evolving project that could always be changing and always be growing. And it would be something that would last more long term than a film. And so that is sort of, I guess, what inspires me the most about especially Disney parks, is the way that they're able to evolve and grow in a way that a movie cannot. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually a really good way to put it because I mean, you touched on something that's interesting is an entire point of a piece of entertainment is immersion, right? I mean, and what better way to immerse somebody than to go to a physical place, right? And then have it be set in a certain theme or mantra that you actually want to convey to people. That's a good point. All right, man. Well, we get the general stuff out of the way, which I'm sure I'll ask some questions here and there. But so I recently saw the Lion King remake. Did you happen to see that by any chance?
I'm not seeing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. I wish that I hadn't.
Yep.
All right. So let's just talk about like these Disney remakes first, just generally. What's your opinion on these, like the slew of remakes we've gotten just this year? And I guess in the last, I think like 2013 has been like kind of like the beginning of the craze for these things. What's your general sentiment on those?
I can come across as very much against them when you look at my Twitter and stuff. But I actually have some pretty mixed opinions. My first video essay that I made, which was on a different channel that I started that I started to just do video essays when I was doing HP1, and then I eventually was like, why am I doing this? I'm just going to do it on Houstonproductions1. But my first video essay that I ever made was actually defending Disney live action remakes, and I still have a little bit of that sentiment, but only in a certain sense. So like, I think they could be good if they're meant to bring the tale to another generation. And I admire that. I think, it's good to not let these stories necessarily die. But for me, the thing is, I am in support of them when they're something that is different or going in a new direction than the original thing, and feels like it's not just a shot-for-shot remake and not just existing to address criticisms of the original. As if it doesn't feel like a crappier version of the animated version, then I'm for it.
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, I like Cinderella. I think Cinderella is a movie that, like, the animated movie doesn't necessarily require the animation to be good because it just stars humans. And so, like, it's not like The Lion King where you're starring anthropomorphic animated animals, and it really depends on the animation to convey its meaning.
Yeah.
And so Cinderella I like a lot, and mainly that's just because it's simple and charming, and it's not made to, like, imitate the animated version. It's just the Cinderella story. And so that one's fun, but I feel like it's really the outlier of them. Jungle Book is okay. I feel like there's enough there's a certain level of, like, going in a new direction with it, with Mowgli's character and some of the implications that they make about, like, how the humans and animals interact and stuff, that I think are interesting. It's got a little bit of originality and new directions there. And then I'm trying to think of the other. Maleficent is fine. I like the idea of Maleficent, of, like, showing another side of the story. I just don't think it's that great of a movie.
Yeah.
But then the others, especially Beauty and the Beast, and especially what else is there? Pete's Dragon is good. I'll throw that out there, but that's mainly because, again, it's totally different than what the original film was. It's just, basically the same in title alone. And also, I feel like Pete's Dragon is, like, it uses the live action as a commentary on, like, what would it be like if a dragon existed in real life. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like taking the cartoon and translating it to live action and being like, this is what it would be like in the real world. And so that's why I think that's cool. And it's just really well directed by David Lowery. But then, like, stuff like The Lion King and stuff like Beauty and the Beast and stuff like, I'm trying to think what else.
Yeah.
Aladdin, of course. That stuff to me just feels like it's the original but bad. And I don't like that. It's like, these things are never going to be the most iconic versions of the thing they're imitating. The most iconic version will always be the animated version, and everyone will always listen to the animated version songs, and the voices will always be most iconic in the animated version, and the most compelling visuals will always come from the animated version. And so, to me, they're just a waste of time, on the one hand. And also, I don't love that they lead people to, like, the mainstream to further go down the path of realism is better than exaggeration, and we need to take these exaggerated abstract things and make them realistic, and that makes them better. Like, to me, that makes them worse. And so, like, I've got more to say, but that's my basic take.
Yeah, for sure. So I agree with a lot of what you said. So I think I have one disagreement where I think the Jungle Book actually capitalizes on kind of what it kind of strikes a beautiful balance between being inspired by and invoking the original, and also being able to reference the original, but also have maybe a different message than what was originally intended.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of makes it feel like its own kind of thing. I love the Jungle Book. I think it's the best Disney remake. I do like Pete's Dragon a lot too. And I do like when movies kind of walk that line of, what if this thing that is completely fantastical and ridiculous actually existed? What are the implications for society in a modern sense? I agree with that. And you can see that kind of sentiment captured by filmmakers like Batman v Superman, Zack Snyder. Like, what if Superman existed in real life? He's an alien. Right. I like that kind of stuff, even though I hate that movie. But yeah, so with Disney remakes, I have a similar sentiment where I want the things to not be capitalized simply on nostalgia. I want it to be a thing where the new technology and the new tools that we have at our disposal are actually used to convey a point. Not just, here's a story and we have this amazing technology now with computer imaging, and we're going to just put the story in a verbatim sense and let you just, see it in beautiful, stunning 4K, 3D, whatever the hell you want to do. So, like, that's why I like the Jungle Book and Pete's Dragon the most out of all of them, because, like, they are invoking the original as opposed to bastardizing it. And with the Lion King, it was, it was, for one thing, like, the thing I have a real problem with is in the Jungle Book, obviously some things are lost in the intangible kind of sentiment that you have of the movie. Like the faces of the animals don't exactly convey emotion the way the human would, of course. But in that movie, you can tell that they actually, tried to map on certain emotions to the faces. Like Bagheera the Panther, for example, actually looks genuinely pissed or genuinely happy in some of the shots.
Yeah.
Baloo is a staggering fat boy who like smiles genuinely in those movies.
Yeah.
And so when you have the Jungle Book, it looks so anthropomorphic, but it's also realistic. I thought that it walked that line beautifully. With The Lion King, I legitimately think that they said, okay, even though this worked for the Jungle Book, we're going to make this as photorealistic as possible. And the only emotion that's going to be generated is from the voice actor's performance. And that's just weird because, like, there's a thing on Twitter that was going around. Like, it was a comparison of Mufasa. Spoiler alert: Mufasa dies. Mufasa gets killed in the animated version, and like you see the really sinister look from Scar, and then like the horrified look from both Mufasa and Simba, and it's conveyed, of course, in animation. You exaggerate faces. With this one, though, you hear the voices have the emotion of "No, Dad!" Like "Long live the king." You have those emotions that you hear, but it just looks like it's resting cap face like in the movie. And
that's a good, you should coin that.
Whatever. Whatever. It's my one good idea a month. I have one good idea a month and then I'm good. But like, it was just strange how like, I genuinely didn't know how I was supposed to feel because like, I don't know what kind of emotion you're trying to give off when I can't see the emotion on screen. All I can see is just a lion that's mouth is kind of moving. The eyes are wide, and that's pretty much it. And that was the big problem that I had with it. And let me be clear, I think Jon Favreau is a genius CGI director. I think he did an amazing thing with The Jungle Book. And I'm not saying that those movies can't be made, but when you're kind of alienating the audience in such a profound way by having, those conflicting, tones of visual and audio cues, it's just strange to watch as a viewer, and not even mentioning the fact that I don't think The Lion King should be touched as a film. Like, I think it's genuinely, I think it's probably my favorite Disney not live action, 2D animated film. I think it's legitimately perfect. I know it's Animal Hamlet, but I think it's so perfect. And when not only do you not do something new with it, you just basically stage it almost shot for shot with a couple interesting transitions here and there. It just makes it seem like National Geographic set to the Lion King soundtrack with subtitles, essentially, is like what I saw it as. And that's sad because like it comes across as so cynical. It's like you're doing this remake, but you're doing it because you can, essentially. And you know that it's going to make a bunch of money. People are going to love The Lion King and want to see it in stunning 4K, 3D, whatever the hell they want to see it. Right. And it just kind of makes you feel sad that like this is now being peddled as like a massive event in movies when legitimately it is staged almost exactly the same as the original, and then it's just updated graphics. It was kind of upsetting watching that, and I wasted $15 watching that movie.
Its success definitely bothers me because I think it is going to encourage all the wrong things to keep happening. So with something like Mulan, I'm a lot more excited for Mulan because it's not based on the animated movie. It's based on the legend of Mulan, and they're not doing a shot-for-shot kind of thing. They're not doing Mushu. They're not doing the songs. I don't know if it's going to be good, but at least the premise of it I can support. And that was kind of the thing with The Lion King, was like, this movie could have been good, and I wouldn't really care. Like the Lion King reboot could be as good as the original in a sense. Like I could have enjoyed it, and I would still be like, this shouldn't exist because like the quality of it doesn't necessarily matter to me because the quality is dependent on the original's quality. It's just what the original was.
Yeah, it's the principle. It's totally the principle.
Yeah. If it was better than the original, now maybe that would be something to talk about. But like, if it only manages to live up to what the original was, in my mind, I'm still totally against it because all it does is palely imitate what was made better in the 90s. Another thing to talk about that I thought would be interesting is like, how we feel about maybe reanimating certain Disney movies with updated animation. So
that's
like
exactly what I was going to say. Like that's a
Yeah,
better use of it because
I
you're
would
taking
pay
it and
money for that, and more than I would
100%.
pay money for the Lion King. Yeah,
100%, like upping the contrast or color correcting it, or like just making the original just look better. You don't have to
yeah,
make a new movie, and you can
yeah.
re-release it in like maybe a select event or something like that. I would absolutely pay for that.
And
And
especially with CGI animated stuff, like early Pixar movies, you know how much money I would pay to see The Incredibles animated with the new texturing and lighting that we have now that was like in Incredibles 2? Like,
yeah,
I would love that, but not like, I mean, as a theatrical release, maybe, but like, I
yeah,
would totally buy a Blu ray. That wouldn't make them a profit, I don't think. I don't think enough
yeah,
people would buy an updated thing. But yeah, like to me, if you want to preserve these movies and bring them to the next generation, what I would do is just, and they're not going to do this obviously because it's not the most money making thing, but like what I would do is just try to popularize the original movies again and update them or bring them some new life through remastering them somehow. And I do wonder how Disney Plus could play into that because they're supposed to have a whole
exactly.
library there of all their classic movies. And to me, that's a big thing because, like, it will enable kids today to watch the classic Disney movies more easily than they would before. And in a sense, it makes the Disney live action remakes even more obsolete because you can just go back and watch the original. You don't have to depend on, finding it at a rental store or whatever. Like, it's a lot more easy to go back than it would be otherwise. So yeah, yeah, and then the only other thing I guess is like there are some of these live action remakes that have been used as almost metatextual commentaries or continuations on the original. So like the Alice in Wonderland Tim Burton movie is actually a sequel to the original Alice in Wonderland, and I don't love that movie. It's not it's a mess.
Yeah,
But I like that idea a lot more than just remaking something shot for shot, right? Like somehow it manages to both be a reboot of Alice in Wonderland and also a continuation of the original Alice in Wonderland. And I think that's a far better strategy than just what The Lion King does, which is just, um, remaking it shot for shot. So
yeah, it's just cynically capitalizing on nostalgia for the original, but doing it in a way where it's just a shadow of what it once was, which is like
yeah,
it's upsetting. And I'm not gonna say that it wasn't beautiful to look at. Like, of course, like the CGI and the artistry on display was really, really amazing to see in like IMAX. But I mean, it just sucked the fact that like do something like do a continuation of the story like for example Christopher Robin or something like that. Like
yeah.
it's very
Yeah,
much
so that would be another thing I would talk
yeah
about. Yeah, that's a great
yeah
example. I
it's
didn't love Christopher Robin, but
not as
that
bad.
idea I like a lot better than a shot-for-shot remake,
Yeah,
obviously.
for sure. Like, what would happen if Christopher Robin grew up? Because, like, that's the thing. We're in all the Winnie the Pooh animated series and stuff and the movies. Christopher Robin's the exact same age, the exact same voice actor doing it. And, you have to wonder, like, what would happen if this kid aged and, like, what if Pooh came back into his life? That'd be actually really interesting. And I like the movie. It wasn't perfect, but I like the sentiment it tried to convey. But with The Lion King, it's cynicism at its highest form. It's really
Yeah,
yeah, it was fucked.
yeah.
And then like now they're gonna do like live action Lady and the Tramp, which is I think gonna be in Disney Plus instead of a theatrical release. But
Yeah,
that's gonna be Homeward Bound, like but with good CGI.
right. And it looks like what they're doing with that from the teaser image they showed. It looks like they're doing some Disney Channel kind of stuff where it's not going to be CGI animals, it's going to be live action animals, and they make the mouths move like they did with like Air Bud and stuff.
Oh my god.
So I'm less offended by that if it's not a theatrical release. I'm like, whatever, like,
Yeah.
But with theatrical stuff, it really does bother me. So yeah, I don't know. It's just, it really does. I I remember when I saw Endgame in April, the entire theater applauded through the Lion King trailer, and everyone was like, "Yeah, I can't wait." And I was like, "What are we applauding for? Like the same thing?" And people know it's the same thing. Like everybody knows that, but yet it inspires this excitement that I don't understand. And I hate to be that killjoy kind of guy because I am very much annoyed by people who like, oh, I hate when the theater claps in the movie, that kind of thing. Like, I
Yeah.
enjoy that other people enjoy things. That's great. But to me, unlike when people clap in a movie theater, Like, when people give billions of dollars to a movie like this, it is harmful to the actual culture,
Yeah.
both in the film industry and what will be made after that, and also just in movie going, because it inspires people to think that like this is okay and this is normal and this is somehow better than animation. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird sentiment because, like I said, on one hand, I'm not opposed to them because I've seen that they can be good and they can be, somewhat original, and just like I think invocation is the best word for that. It's invoking your sentiment of the original but doing something different. And with this one, it's legitimately just the same film, staged almost
Yeah.
exactly the same, and going
Using it
forward,
as
yeah,
a platform to make something new, I think is
yeah,
what's important.
exactly,
Like using it as a jumping off point. I think it's fine to use brand recognition as a way to get people to see your thing. Like, like
yeah,
one of my favorite movies is 10 Cloverfield Lane, and that's a movie that didn't need to be a Cloverfield movie, but they made it a Cloverfield movie so that people would see it. Like,
yeah,
and I have no problem with that because no one would have seen it if it was called The Cellar.
yeah,
And it's the same way with some of these stories. Like, I think it would be much like I'm fine with using a classic Disney movie as a jumping off point to
yeah,
make something new, whether it be a sequel or it be a commentary on that movie or something else. Like, that's fine. Um, but it should be something that challenges people or something that moves them in a new way, not something that just regurgitates the same stuff but worse.
yeah.
Um,
Totally agree.
so yeah,
Disney's really gotta. I don't know, man.
right.
It's just weird. Like to be that cynical and all of a sudden know like behind the scenes they've just acquired Fox.
Yeah,
Like they legitimately have so much goddamn money and so many avenues of entertainment that like
it's insane.
I mean like I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of 40% of the market share being like owned by
Chris.
Disney. So like
Yeah.
I think that I'm all for capitalism. I just don't think that you should have 40% of the market cornered, which is kind of strange. But yeah, so like but also I mean Disney's doing great stuff too, and then they have Marvel, which is I think a good thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Comic-Con was this last weekend, and we saw that there is indeed a Phase 4 in development, and we got the list of movies. Yeah, so you want to talk about those? I have the
Yeah.
list pulled
People
up right
can
here.
they can see my anti Disney, and now they can see my shill Disney.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Ooh, here we go. Let me crack the neck real quick. All right, so the first movie on the junket is the Black Widow movie that's coming out on May 1st
Yeah.
in 2020. So just generally about Black Widow's character, I was never really a fan of her. I liked her quippy stuff with Captain America. I thought that her romantic triangle with the Hulk was really, really stupid. But I liked her character. I wasn't a huge fan, but the send off they gave her in Endgame was that literally wrapped up her character arc with a bow. And I've been begging for a Black Widow movie because I actually want to know the character more and like her more. And so I'm kind of conflicted on this because is it going to be just a straight up prequel? Is it going to be like a thing where in like the alternate universe that maybe Loki, had this
So they said
Tesseract? Yeah.
it's set between Civil War and Infinity War when she was on.
Okay. They have the actual. Okay, got it. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's going to be very much like a in canon, like before the events like started story. Okay, that makes me more optimistic about it. But yeah, like I'm excited for this, and I'm interested to see what they'll do because they actually have a pretty interesting timeline to play with now. Because of course, in the aftermath of Civil War, there was a lot of drama that happened in between when we saw Captain and Tony essentially break up and the beginning of Infinity War. I think it's a perfect time to set the movie. Now that I know that, yeah, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I've been begging to see more of that gap for a while. I think there's two gaps now that I want to see more of. I want to see more of the gap between Civil War and Infinity War when Cap and her were on the run. Like, that's a totally interesting time period. But then also I do want to see more of the gap between
Infinity War Endgame.
Infinity War and Endgame during the post-snap stuff. That 5 years is like there's so many interesting stories you can tell in that. I'm thinking like, it'd be cool if the Captain Marvel movie was set in that period of
Yeah.
time. That would be cool. But yeah, like, so I think it's cool that it's set in that time period. I've never been like a massive Black Widow fan. I think movie to movie, she has some movies that she's really good in and some movies that she's not great in. And
Yeah.
overall, like, I think a character like Tony Stark or a character like Captain America has had a very compelling cross movie arc that has kind of been very well handled by the producers and writers in a way that makes it cohesive and flows from film to film. With Black Widow, it's a lot more of they didn't know what to do with her movie to movie, and they kind of gave her different things to do and tested out stuff. And some movies she's great in, like Winter Soldier, I think is great. I think she's good in the Avengers, and then in Endgame, I thought she was terrific.
Oh yeah.
But then in movies like Infinity War and what else? Age of Ultron,
Yeah.
like not great. Even though Age of Ultron does give her some interesting things to do, it's just those things weren't very well handled. So yeah, I'm interested to see how they play it. One thing I had thought about the other day was that this is almost a similar situation to Solo, where Solo, they killed off Han Solo, and then they made a Solo movie, no pun intended, about him that was set before he died, and nobody saw it. And so I'm hoping that's not the case with Black Widow, and I don't think it will be. Like, it's going to be a female superhero movie, and so there's going to be that level of we need to go support this kind of thing. And if it's good, I'm thinking it'll get a lot of support. But yeah, it is interesting that she died, and now they're making a movie about her. I don't know what the public reaction is going to be to that, and if people who don't know all the context are going to be like, what, so she's alive now or something? Like, it's just, I tend to think a lot about how the mainstream, like your grandma will react to things, right? Like, rather than knowing all the context of like how a nerd would react to stuff. But like the people involved seem cool. The cast is great. David Harbour and Rachel Weisz, and they're doing Taskmaster as the villain. So like, I can't complain. I think it's going to be cool. And I also like that they're focusing on a small scale thing after the events of Endgame. They did that with Far From Home, and they're doing that with this, where it's going to be a smaller scale kind of adventure, I guess. And then they're going huge with the Eternals, but even that then is still disconnected from Avengers.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah, like I'm for it, and I think it'll probably be good given their track record. But I can't wait to see some footage.
Yeah, for sure. And then after that, in fall 2020, I guess we can talk about the Disney Plus series, just kind of like in one fell swoop. So we have the Falcon Winter Soldier series, we have WandaVision, we have What If, which is the animated one, which I'm actually kind of interested to see, and then we have Hawkeye and Loki as well. So here's my opinion on these shows that are coming out. I get it. They have a new streaming service. They want to capitalize on that, and they want to tell exclusive stories that are only on Disney Plus. But my problem is, Marvel has been kind of almost like the brand leader for telling stories that have a pretty much flawless continuity. There are a couple hiccups here and there, of course, but their continuity has been so streamlined and it has been so consistent across films. And I just feel like it's going to be a classic thing of too many cooks in the kitchen with the TV shows, because I mean, if you think about it, so like you have Falcon the Winter Soldier, so those things were in. They were canon in the movies, and now they're going to have their own TV series. So are the movies now going to be completely centered on the premises that are laid out in that show? Are they going to deviate slightly? And I just feel like there's just too much canon to cover and have it actually make sense within a future movie or something like that, but also have it make sense in the character arcs they've already set up in all the other movies. And also, I mean, we get this weird thing where like Loki died in the proper canon, but also now he has the Space Stone and one of the manifestations of the time travel that happened in Endgame. WandaVision, either it's going to be like a dichotomous timeline where Vision never died, or it's going to be in between. It's set after Endgame. Yeah, that's weird as hell.
I don't know. Some people are speculating that that's going to be set in like a alternate reality, like Wanda gets trapped in like a crazy. They've said it's like she's trapped in a 1950s sitcom or something like that. Like that's, so I'm interested. I don't know.
But my larger point before I get off this, my larger point is I just think it's going to be too much canon to really have a good quality control over the movies, because I mean, Kevin Feige, regardless of any other kind of like, cynical capitalistic, whatever framework that he has, he really does love and cherish Marvel characters and Marvel stories. And like that can be commended because
he's a fanboy.
Yeah, exactly. And like you want someone like that running all of the property that comes out of your studio. But like are you going to have all of this canon be self-referential and link into one another? Is it going to be, are you going to be able to like have this show and have some crazy shit happen, but also like have the movies have proper stakes afterwards? They feature those characters. And in my opinion, like I don't know if I like the idea of characters swapping in and out of the TV canon and the movie canon. I think it's going to be just a lot of convoluted stuff that can happen as a result of that. I am excited for things that kind of go in a different direction, like What If. But I don't know. I think that it's going to be like inconsistent in quality. And also you got to think too, if you look at the Netflix Marvel series, for example, those are considered in canon, but not everybody saw the Defenders, right? So are you going to have like a thing where in the movies you're going to reference the Falcon Winter Soldier series and have it be a really, really vital plot point for the movie you're telling, but also if no one's seen the Falcon Winter Soldier series, is that really going to pay off in a meaningful way for the movies that they're going to be in? I just think like generally my thesis is there's going to be a lot of things to consider in terms of keeping things consistent across the TV and the movies. But yeah, that's kind of what I have to say about that.
Yeah, I totally understand your complaints. Although I majorly disagree. Like for me, the whole too many cooks in the kitchen thing, for one, is almost what I'm excited for. Not in the sense that like there will be too many hands on something, but that like I just can't wait to see more voices and more distinct tones throughout.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that about voices. I want like didactic and like completely disparate tones in Marvel. But what I'm saying is like you still have to tell a cohesive story at the end of the day, and you have this massive story you have to fulfill. And so if you have all these different competing things, like, for example, like I said, not everybody saw the Defenders. So let's say the Avengers movie that was going to come out after that, if it centered the Defenders and the Avengers, something like that, what if that canon really isn't explored or like what if people didn't really see the Defenders and then have those character arcs be a major plot point in the movie? That's what I'm talking about. Like, I don't mean like voice. I want all the different tones you can possibly get in Marvel because I want like all the different genres. But I don't know, like in terms of canon, I don't think it's really gonna be easy to link all those stories together. But I've been wrong before, and I love Marvel, so I'm interested to see what they do.
I do worry what you said, that maybe the TV shows won't have as much impact as they could because they won't want to do big things in the TV shows because you want to save those things for the movies. And it's like, well, if we do this in the TV show and people don't watch it, then how can we reference it in the movie? That kind of thing. But for me, the thing that I'm excited for is the MCU movies have for a while attempted to be, since the beginning really, attempted to be like comic books in cinematic form. But the thing that has been hard about that is that each movie is an event, and so we rarely get to see the in-between of the movies. And so like Age of Ultron never got to be Age of Ultron because it was one film, and so you can only do like a span of a couple days. And then something like, what else? The Sokovia Accords had to only last for like the in-between of two different movies and then be called off by Infinity War and that kind of thing. And then like Infinity War, the 5-year gap between the snap and all that had to be shown off screen. And versus with a comic book, a lot of times what happens is, you have these long spans of time actually get to play out in a comic book series that's more long form and people get to read that. And so for me, what's great about the TV shows is that they'll support that ability to span a longer period of time and to see what happens in between things. So like, rather than going hard cut, from the ending of Civil War to Cap and Natasha on the run in Infinity War, we get to see what it was like for them on the run, that kind of thing. And so in cinematic form, the thing I'm thinking they'll probably do, because Marvel has long been good at catching viewers up and not assuming that they've seen everything. Like, it is getting to a breaking point now, I think, where it is kind of insane how much you have to watch to understand the MCU. But still, like, especially with Endgame, there were people who saw it who had seen barely anything and still were able to get the basic premise of things. And so what I would guess that they'll do is like, maybe the Falcon and Winter Soldier series features Falcon learning to be Captain America and stepping into his own as Captain America. And then in the movies, we cut straight from Endgame to the next movie, Falcon is Captain America. But the series is able to show the in-between there and the longer span of time of what it was like for him becoming Captain America.
Mhm.
And like you said, I think there's definitely still that risk that this is all like unnecessary kind of stuff that like doesn't, the big things don't happen in the TV shows because they're being saved for the movies. But that's almost what I'm excited for about it, because it, like, they should be able to flesh out more of the periods of times that we don't get to see in a film because they're not big enough for that. And
Yeah.
so, in a sense, I am hoping what's going to happen is that the TV shows get to be more character driven and more slow with more dialogue and, you know, just character growth and exploration, because they're more long form and because you don't have to do as huge of stuff in a TV show. So yeah, that's my basic opinion. I'm hyped. Some of them I'm more hyped for than others. I'm really excited for What If, and that's sort of its own thing. And I'm really excited, honestly, for the Falcon and Winter Soldier stuff, because I think it's a cool, like, it's going to be set in that political thriller, like Winter Soldier, Civil War kind of universe in the MCU. And then even WandaVision, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. It's, you know, it could go wrong in a lot of ways, but I think Elizabeth Olsen is a really talented actress. I like Scarlet Witch. And so, and just involving the magic stuff, like, you could go so many ways with that I'm just curious to see what they do with it. Loki is easily the one I'm the least excited for, but, you know, I don't know. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment for sure. I think I'm most excited for Hawkeye because, like, I mean, there's been a lot of amazing comic runs from Hawkeye.
I keep about Hawkeye. Yeah. And I think Jeremy Renner is an amazing actor who deserves to be a lead in things. So, yeah, I'm totally hyped for that.
Yeah. And so, like, you know, I don't want to take too much of your time, so we'll go through the rest of them Phase 4 kind of quickly. So Eternals and Shang-Chi, I know absolutely nothing about those characters. I was a huge comic book fan back in the day. I didn't read any of that stuff, so
I don't know anything either. Yeah.
All right, cool. Move on. Doctor Strange 2. This is the one I'm the most excited for. Actually, there's two that I'm most excited for in Phase 4. But Doctor Strange, first of all, I love the kind of weirdness of these titles, like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness instead of
They're so campy. I love it.
Yeah. I love it because, like, now it seems like a comic book where it's like you have these, like, you know, strange stories that maybe don't have to, I mean, they're obviously going to, like, serve a greater purpose in the entire story arc of the MCU, but, like, you can tell, like, really specific stories now, and you can tell, like, really weird tales. Like there's a lot of different Doctor Strange comics that I really enjoy. I was reading one recently. I forget the name of it because my memory sucks and I'm not caffeinated. So, but yeah, like, and I think equally exciting is Thor Love and Thunder, which, again, that's, like, so campy and so weird, and I'm just so glad that Taika Waititi is coming back for this movie. Both those movies I am absolutely pumped out of my mind for, because I love both Benedict Cumberbatch and Chris Hemsworth in the roles, and now it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, because on Doctor Strange's side of the coin, he's kind of seen as, like, an overseer in the universe. And now that Tony Stark is gone, he could potentially move into more of an overseer and guiding force kind of role in the MCU. Yeah. And with Thor, I mean, I'm really excited to either see Fat Thor again or to see how he actually loses the weight and becomes a Guardian of the Galaxy. I'm hyped out of my mind for both of those.
Yeah. Doctor Strange, I'm really interested in because, like, I think Scott Derrickson is a very talented director. He was just a little bit shackled in the first movie, and you had a lot to set up that was, you know, origin story kind of stuff that I think we're past that at this point. And it's just going to be great to see something that's not an origin story with the character, and especially after seeing what he can do in Infinity War and Endgame. I mean, it's just going to be awesome to see his power level. But at the same time, I actually hope what they're going to do with the character is maybe, I mean, what you have to do with a sequel really is, if it's the Multiverse of Madness, put him into a place where he is the underdog. Like, and I don't want him to be Captain Marvel, where it's he can stop every threat with his amazing magical skills. Like, I want him to be, I think there's a comics run where maybe he has his magic taken away or something, or it's downgraded and he uses an axe and stuff. Like, I'd love to see that. And, you know, maybe have his powers restored at the end of the movie or something like that. But, like, yeah, and Scott Derrickson also said that it's going to be the first scary MCU movie. He also said that about Doctor Strange. He said it would include horror elements, and it definitely did not. But I still am optimistic that it will be totally different than some of the other MCU films. Also, having Scarlet Witch in it is going to be super cool, and I think that could be totally an awesome dynamic between the two of them. I'm just interested to see how Marvel uses the multiverse. What I'm hoping really is, I don't want Marvel to go for the whole alternate timeline multiverse. Like, it's the same as our universe, but one thing is different, that kind of thing. Like, I want to see just crazy, wacky alien planet multiverse kind of stuff. Like, I mean, kind of like what we saw in Doctor Strange in the whole open your eye scene where he falls through all those crazy dimensions and stuff. Like, I want more of that than I want, like, it's our universe, but this person died, and so the timeline went differently. And that kind of thing. So I'm hyped. I would like to see Benedict Cumberbatch kind of step into his own. I think he gained a lot more confidence in the role in Infinity War and Endgame. And it'll be fun to see, like in the first Iron Man film, Tony is arrogant and egotistical. Then he becomes Iron Man. So he starts out as an arrogant and egotistical billionaire, and then in the second movie, he's an arrogant and egotistical superhero, and he has to learn to continue to not be arrogant and egotistical. And with Doctor Strange, like, he was arrogant as a doctor, and now it's almost like he's the aloof Sorcerer Supreme who knows all. And, like, I want to see him, again, gain some more humility and, like, I guess, like I said before, like, maybe have his powers decreased and be the underdog of the film. Because I think Marvel definitely works best when their characters are underdogs.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm hyped for the tone. I'm hyped for the just more cosmic stuff in general. And I love that they know the public has their trust, so they're going crazy with the titles. Like, that's going to be great. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm honestly even more excited for that one than I am for Thor, even though I'm so excited to see Taika Waititi come back. And like, just thinking about Thor as a character, he just had like such an interesting arc, like throughout the entire MCU. Like, in the first movie, he was fine. Second movie, one of my least favorite characters. Then he redeemed himself completely in Ragnarok, and like now he has so many things to play with. Like, you can embrace his more dramatic side, you can embrace his more comedic side. I think his interactions with the Guardians of the Galaxy and also Valkyrie are really, really interesting.
And Natalie Portman now,
and so last thing, so Natalie Portman, I was under the impression that she said she never wanted to be in an MCU movie again.
She did.
Like, and now she's back. So
yeah,
what the hell?
Yeah, I am really, really happy about this because I'm one of the few people who defends the first two Thor movies. They're not great. They're not the best in the MCU, and Jane Foster has never been the most interesting character. But I have always been, when Ragnarok came out and they threw away her character in one line, I was like, we spent 2 movies with her. Like, I didn't forget. Like, the movie assumed that we forgot about her, and I was like, no, I didn't forget. You guys are throwing her out with one line. This is lazy. Like, rather than... And Ragnarok was bold and good in a sense because they were like, all right, these things aren't working. We're going to go in somewhere different. And they did, and now it works a lot better. But on the other hand, with certain things, especially like with Jane, what I said about Ragnarok at the time was I wished that they would not just abandon it completely, but that they would try a new spin that would actually continue to make it better. And it looks like that's what they're doing. Like, so that I'm super excited that she has not been thrown out the door. They brought her back a little bit in Endgame by just referencing her a bit. And now in retrospect, I guess that was to remind people that she exists so they can show her again in Thor 4. But yeah, like, I think Natalie Portman is extremely talented and just never got to really use her talent in the first 2 movies. And so I cannot wait to see her as a lead, and I hope that continues into later movies all the way. That's going to be awesome. I think it would be great to see her and Valkyrie be a thing. And even, like, even if the movie, I'm curious to see when the movie is over and the credits roll, who was the Thor in the title? Like, is the movie about Chris Hemsworth Thor, or is it going to be about Natalie Portman from the beginning? Like, that would be super cool if ultimately the protagonist just becomes her.
Yeah.
But I assume it's going to be a bit of a dual thing. Like they'll bring her back into the fold, and Thor will interact with her, and then eventually she'll take the helm by the end of the film. But yeah, like it's got a ton of potential. And again, like I've referenced Ragnarok, I'm not the biggest fan of Ragnarok. I respect what it did for the character. But my biggest problem with it was that I felt like it was a generic MCU movie with some Taika Waititi tones slapped onto it, because he didn't write the script and they brought him on as director. And so to me, stuff like the Doctor Strange scene and the scene with Odin and all that stuff, like it feels like that was a movie that they had going, and then Taika came along and was like, yeah, we're doing something different. And they sort of reorganized, and they cut several scenes, and they brought back certain scenes and reshot things. And so to me, it feels really muddled because of that. And Thor Love and Thunder, best title ever.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be cool because he's writing it from the beginning. And so I can't wait to see what tonally he does with that. I hope that they manage to keep some of the drama alive, because that was another problem I had with Ragnarok, was that the comedic beats overshadowed any potential emotion and drama that was felt in the film. And so I hope that it strikes a good balance between, you know, something that moves you and also something that makes you laugh. But yeah, like I'm really optimistic about this. I love the cast. I love what they're doing to bring back Jane and Valkyrie, and obviously Chris Hemsworth is, you know, an amazing actor with great comedic timing. So like, I'm hyped. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, me too. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, I don't want to take too much of your time, but you know, we got along pretty well. I'd love to have you back on again sometime soon.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I mean, people probably already know in the chat where you are, but tell people where they can find you on Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm at BlockbustedPod on Twitter. You probably know this already if you're watching this stream. And then Houstonproductions1 on YouTube. So that's pretty much it. I mean, Patreon, I'm also Houstonproductions1, and then that's all. But yeah, I've got several videos in the works right now. Again, I mentioned it earlier. I'm doing a Zelda and Disney Parks video. That sounds very specific, and it is, and I hope you'll enjoy it when you check it out. And then that should be it. People are saying we forgot to talk about Blade, but I know very little about Blade, so like, yeah, I'm excited, you know.
I know very little, but I know that Mahershala Ali is perfect casting, so I'm just curious to see what they do. That's pretty much all I have to say about it.
But yeah, right, thanks for having me on.
Of course, man. Anytime. Anyway, this has been Houston. This is episode 20 or 37, the Long Canvas podcast. And all my viewers, I promise I have a new video essay coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. Peace.